blasters are full.
What's up guys, Gripe here with another review. Today we're going to check out the Variant Play Arts Kai Venom figure from Square Enix. And as always, we'll start off by checking out the packaging. And just like the other Play Arts Kai figures that I've reviewed, this one is awesomely packaged. You've got a really nice picture up front here. It's the Variant Venom sitting in some black webs. It looks like it's in a cityscape. You've got some sky up there. You also have the Variant Play Arts logo as well as the figure name in nice silver foil on the front cover there. You've got the Square Enix logo in the top right and a choking hazard warning in the top left, as these parts do look tasty. And on the side here we have a continuation of that same image with some of the black webbing. You've also got the Variant Play Arts Kai and Venom up at the top. And on the back you've got 3 different poses for the figure as well as some other images and some information in various languages. And on this side you have the Play Arts Kai logo and the figure name. And on the top, Play Arts Kai logo again, some more choking hazards, and on the bottom the Square Enix logo. And just like the rest of the Play Arts Kai boxes, this is a magnetically sealed flap that you can open up there. And on the inside of the flap, you've got a little blurb here about the Marvel Universe, and then you've got some information about Venom himself. And I'll zoom in so you guys can read that. You've also got a nice big window here to showcase the figure and all its accessories. And speaking of accessories, we'll now take a detailed look at all the accessories that come with the figure, and here they are all laid out. And like the rest of the Play Arts Kai figures that I've reviewed, this one comes with a nice little stand. And it does come disassembled in a few pieces. You have to put it together, but it's fairly easy to do. And it has 2 different calipers, a large and a small, and it also has a tool to help you assemble all the pieces, as well as instructions in the box. And it does come with 2 different heads. This is my personal favorite, the one with the tongue hanging out. You can see the really nice details they have on this tongue. Those are all sculpted in. It's got a nice wash to really accentuate all the sculpted details. There's also some really nice sculpted details on the rest of the head and a really nice paint app on it. Not only the head, but especially the mouth and teeth area looks just great on this. And we also have the closed mouth head with the evil grin on it. And again, there's a really nice paint app applied on the teeth and gum area here. And pretty much the same detail as far as sculpt and paint on the rest of the head. And this figure also comes with a nice variety of different hands. You have the 2 fisted hands here, and these have some great sculpt and paint on them. I like the different textures that are sculpted into it, as well as the different gradients that they use with the paint. You can really see a nice gradient here on the top with the purple and metallic colors. It just came out great. And you have these 2 open claw-like hands, and again, great detail on the sculpt and paint on these. I especially like the positioning of the fingers. It looks really menacing. And again, great detail on the sculpt with the multiple textures and the gradients in the paint application. And you've got these 2 goo shooting hands, which also came out really good. Great sculpt on the hands themselves as well as the goo. It's very nicely detailed with a lot of little lines and ridges. Also has some great gradient in the paint, even in the goo. You can see that blue gradient on some of those. And again, it just really looks like there's some goo shooting out of them. And you have this one left hand, which is the large web shooting hand. You can really see a lot of little strings in the sculpt on this, and it looks great. A lot of little great details. There's also some great gradient on the webbing that comes out of this hand. You can see it here by my thumb. And again, just another great sculpt and paint app on this. So now I'll check out the sculpt and paint on the figure itself, and much like the other Play Arts Kais that I've seen, this one is meticulously sculpted and painted. There's a lot of very interesting texture details in the sculpt. Which adds some really nice touch to it. There's these kind of leathery sections over here. There's also these smooth matte sections as well as the more glossy sections. Let me zoom in so you can get a better look. You can see this has the smooth matte area a lot in the pelvic and butt areas, as well as the upper thigh here in the back. And it has this awesome leather texture here. And that's kind of all over the legs here, as well as the arms and a bit on the chest. You can see it here on the bicep. You can also see those really nice wrinkles that are molded into the bicep. You've got some veins on this bicep. Again, just really great detail. You've got this nice glossy purple gradient on the kneecaps and here on the spider logo on the chest. And I really like this metallic purple that they use, that they fade into the silver colors all throughout the figure. You can see it here on the neck. You can also see they have that leathery texture on the neck. There's actually like 3 different textures on the neck, which looks really nice. You can see some kind of sinewy areas on the back here, and a lot of that great purple and silver paint applied on the spider logo on the back. You've also got some really nice details here on the legs. You've got those spider web designs sculpted into the back of the calves and the front here. The forearms on this thing are also really nice and heavily detailed. There's a lot of different texture areas and different designs on it. You can see some nice wrinkles here at the top of the forearm. And again, this whole figure is just dripping with details. You can see the feet have some really nice spider webbing, and that's on the bottom as well. And again, that's all sculpted in and then painted with a nice silver paint. And like the other two Marvel PlayArts Kai figures that I've reviewed, there are some soft plastic areas. The whole upper torso here is soft plastic, as well as his pelvic area. And unlike the Iron Man, it does fit pretty good on there. I don't think it's quite as snug as the Spider-Man, but it still doesn't look bad at all. And it is on there pretty nice, and it doesn't really jostle around while you're posing. The only issue I do have is the one side of the torso here seems to stick out farther than the other side. You can really see it here. The right side seems to pop out a little bit more than the left, and it is a little bit noticeable, but it's not too bad, especially when you start posing the figure. And again, it's not hugely noticeable, but it does kind of draw your eye if the figure is just standing up straight. And as you can see, it is a bit hollow on the inside, but that's to be expected with all the joints in there. Overall, I think they did a really great job on the sculpt and paint. Aside from that one issue with the torso, everything else came out really good. So now we'll check out the articulation of the figure, and it is a fairly well articulated figure, much like the other PlayArts Kais that I've reviewed. And we'll start with the head and move our way down. You can get him to look up slightly higher than straight, but that's about it. He looks down a decent amount. The head and neck are separately articulated, so when you get the neck involved, you can have him looking at his feet, which is really nice. Just bear in mind, if you're using the other head, you will lose some of this range of motion. You can rotate the head completely around on the neck, and the neck itself does rotate, although you are a little bit limited by the top of the shoulders there as they do hit the neck. And one of the only bad things about the articulation on the head and neck is you cannot tilt the head and you cannot move the neck side to side. And that's due to the large shoulders that this figure does have. And the shoulder joints themselves are the ratcheting type, and you can get some pretty good movement out of those, although you can see you will start to pinch the upper part of the shoulder there, the trap area, and it does get stuck on those little spiky things on the shoulder. The shoulders themselves do rotate a little bit in the socket, mostly just going back and forward. You don't get too much up and down rotation on them. You can rotate the arm completely around the socket, and it does have a really nice bicep cut, and you can rotate that completely around if you want. And it does have the single jointed elbows. They are the ratcheting type, although you do have a really good range of motion. They're very similar to a Revoltech type joint, and you can get a lot of different angles out of it, which is nice. You can also get some twist on the forearm as well. So again, you can really get a lot of different angles and poses out of that area of the figure. And it has the swivel and hinge type wrists, and they are fairly exposed, but you do have a great range of motion. You can rotate it completely, and you can get really far down and up with that. And there's really no trouble at all getting different angles on that hinge. It's fairly easy to do. And now we'll check out the diaphragm joint. It is a fairly nice diaphragm joint on here. It's similar to the other PlayArts Kai in that it's a double hinge diaphragm joint. And you can actually get a pretty nice bend on this joint. You can see you can get him pretty far forward. He's almost doubled over there, which is nice. And he goes a decent amount back. And again, because it is a double hinge joint, I don't know if you can see it that well there, but you can shimmy the upper part from the bottom, which is nice, and that allows you to get some additional range of motion out of it. You can get some decent side to side with it as well. And also rotation, you can get that completely around if you want. And the waist is also articulated, and that'll help you get some additional range of motion on those type of poses. You can get some rotation left and right. You can also get a little bit of a forward bend and a little bit of a backward bend. And you can get some nice side to side out of it as well. Alright, so now check out the hips, and the hips are also ratchet type joints. And you can only get about that wide on the legs, which isn't that great, but it's not terrible. It does have a nice kick forward. You can get 90 degrees on that, which is nice. He also has a pretty nice kick back. You're at maybe 80 degrees or so. So again, you have some decent range of motion on there. You also have some rotation at the top of the hip here, which is nice. You can only get about that far though. And you can also rotate the top of the thigh. So you do have a lot of rotation in that area of the leg, which is especially good for trying to get some tricky poses. He does have ratcheting type joints on the knee, and those are double hinged, so you can get a really nice bend on it. While there is no rotation at the knee, you don't really need it with as much as there is in the upper part of the leg. Now we'll check out the ankles, and they are fairly well articulated. You can see you can get that foot up pretty high, And you can get it way down. You can get it practically straight, which is nice. And it does have some decent pivot. There's really no rotation. It's got that rocker style pivot similar to like a Black Series, although you have a bit more on this. And it does have some toe articulation. You can get them up about that high, which is pretty good for bent leg poses, and they go just slightly lower than straight. Alright, so now check out the size of the figure. And he comes in at 10 inches tall, which is the same height as the Spider-Man and Iron Man figures that I've reviewed. There is no scaling on this line. So overall, I really love this figure. I think the sculpt and paint on are just phenomenal. It's got really good articulation, great accessories, and I think the style of it matches better with Venom as a character than does, say, the Spider-Man or Iron Man variant figures. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed the review. Subscribe for more.
Set blasters on full.